The Bliss Business Podcast, the show about empathy, connection, and consciousness in business. Today's episode is brought to you by Zero Company, your paid search, social media, and programmatic ad experts.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. I'm Steven Cash here again with my co-host Tulio Siragusa and our special guest who we'll introduce in a moment. So small businesses are often described as the backbone of the economy, but behind every successful business, it's often a network of support, relationships, and community. And according to the U.S. Small Business Administration, small businesses account for 44% of U.S. economic activity, highlighting their critical role in driving growth and innovation. For entrepreneurs, especially those building in local communities or rural communities, connection is not just helpful, it is essential. And access to resources, mentorships, and strong networks can make the difference between struggling and thriving. So today we are exploring how community and connection shape business success and what leaders can do to strengthen the ecosystems around them. Tulio, introduce our special guest today.
My pleasure. Our guest today is Ruth Ellen Elinski. She's the Associate State Director of the Arizona SBDC Network. Ruth Ellen is an entrepreneur who has launched multiple businesses and co-founded PinDrop Travel Trailers, an award-winning manufacturing company based in Miami, Arizona, that was named one of America's top 100 small businesses by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce in 2024. Her experience spans business ownership, nonprofit leadership, and economic development, including serving on a 20-member board of directors and contributing to statewide initiatives such as Governor's Hobbs Educator Retention Task Force, and a returned Peace Corps volunteer and fellow of the Glenn Brown Leadership Academy. Ruth Ellen brings a deep commitment to community leadership and supporting entrepreneurs across Arizona. Ruth Ellen, welcome to the Bliss Business Podcast. We're excited to speak with you today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I appreciate the invitation.
Yeah, it should be fun. So Ruth Ellen, you've worked closely with entrepreneurs and small businesses across, these different communities. From your perspective, what role does community play in the success of a business?
Sure. This is a great lead-in question. I think that community is everything to small businesses. I really have experienced this myself, but for sure in advising other small business owners in my role with the Small Business Development Center Network, it's so important for businesses to know what other small businesses are in their community, what other resources they have available, and how to tap into community leadership, as well as other business owners' expertise and mentorship. This just brings a whole other level of understanding of what entrepreneurship is about and how to be successful in your own community.
Yeah, so it's for the audience. Can you describe a little bit about just some of the services and things that you provide in that role?
Oh, sure. So I actually started as what we call in the network a business advisor. And what's excellent about the Small Business Development Center Network is we are there's a network in every state. We are a federally funded program, but this program, the Small Business Development Center Networks, provide no cost, so absolutely free, confidential expert advising to businesses from anything from business planning to financial recording to things like preparing to pitch your idea to a panel of judges or investors. We have access to a lending community, so we can put you in touch with different resources to access capital. So it's really just a big scale of resources and expert advising that can help any business in whatever stage they're in.
Now, Ruth Ellen, you've you've built your own business in a rural community. What did that experience teach you about the importance of building connection, and also especially connection like in the local ecosystem?
Sure. I think one of the things I always like to talk about is when you're specifically in rural, there's different challenges in rural communities, as you can imagine. There's fewer resources. You have longer distances between yourself and vendors or resources. And, it's not for everyone. It would be very easy or easier for some of these enterprises that are based in more rural communities to just move to an urban center. And likely it would provide additional access and maybe be a little bit easier and provide the opportunity for long-term sustainability. But when you choose to be in a rural community, you have to kind of accept the fact that those are the challenges that go along. And of course, entrepreneurs, right? They're up for anything typically. And so when you're picking a rural community, I think it does pose additional challenges that you might not expect. I think one of the most important ways to address those challenges, again, is to really understand the resources that are available and to build a foundation of support and a customer base in your home community, and really be able to tell your story to those that are in the community so that you're building that personal connection with people who live and work alongside you. It's so important for entrepreneurs to have that, not only a system of support, but really be able to lean on the local community for regular income when there's other barriers to people coming into your community. So that's, number one is really building that foundation of a customer base. So you don't have to rely on people coming into your community to be profitable.
So if I'm a business and I'm kind of in that stage where I want to kind of, work on my growth, accelerate like most businesses, what kind of role do organizations like SBDC play in that? Like, how can I, go to you? What kind of support do you think is typical in those kind of situations?
Well, I think one of the greatest benefits of small business development centers is they're really located in more rural, underserved areas. So while our host here in Arizona, while our main host is the Maricopa County Community College District, we have subrecipients throughout Arizona, which include host community colleges. So we have 9 other centers across the state that are all housed in community colleges where very remote economies and very remote businesses reside or are headquartered. And so we're really boots on the ground in some of these communities that provide access that those businesses wouldn't otherwise have. And I just want to remind everyone, it is a no-cost service. It's really your federal tax dollars at work. And the people who make up these teams located across the state are many times either former business owners, they were entrepreneurs, or they're currently business owners and entrepreneurs. And so that's one more way that our teams are really able to connect with the businesses in the community, because a lot of us have already been there or are experiencing similar challenges. We also need to find creative ways to access capital to grow our businesses. We also need to find ways to retain workforce. And so because we've had those experiences ourselves, we have a lot to offer entrepreneurs that are trying to grow and expand and sustain their enterprise.
Now, I have to admit, I am new to the SBDC. It's the first time I'm hearing about it, and apparently it's a nationwide thing. So shame on me for not knowing sooner, but I'm curious, according to the SBD standards, like what makes a business community strong and effective? Like what do you guys strive to accomplish in terms of the business community itself in the rural areas?
Do you mean like our teams? What do they try to do? Could you re-say that question?
What would you consider a successful business community from your point of view?
Oh, I see. Well, I think a successful business community could look a lot of different ways. I mean, some of our more rural businesses have had challenges with, youth flight, with blighted downtown districts, with challenges on their main street, right? Because of just, I think, traditional economic downturns. And when you have support systems and resources like an SBDC in those communities, I think the idea is to really generate more economic activity. Part of our role is really for us as advisors to understand what different industries are in the community, and if it makes sense, connecting business owners together to make sure they know that and are aware of what each other is doing to build up the local economy. One other thing I would point out to kind of piggyback on that is one of the greatest resources for an entrepreneur is really tapping into other small business owners. And I've seen it time and again when we, as a network, provide educational opportunities and trainings where those entrepreneurs can come together. Maybe they're learning a specific topic, maybe it's a marketing training or reading your financial statements training, whatever it might be. What happens is these conversations start to happen between the business owners on the challenges they faced, maybe how they've addressed those challenges themselves. And so the entrepreneurs themselves become their greatest resources. And I would say to anyone who is an entrepreneur that thinks you can do it by yourself, you're really setting yourself up for more challenges down the road if you're not tapping in to some of those other small business owners or resources like that, which our Arizona SBDC network provides. It really is, there's no shame in saying, I don't know everything as an entrepreneur. How do I get through this next phase of hiring people or adding another product line to how do I diversify myself? I mean, these are all excellent questions, and you don't have to have all the answers, but you certainly have a lot of opportunity to tap into other business owners, mentors, advisors like SBDC and others. So it'll make your life a lot easier if you tap into those kinds of resources.
Yeah, I mean, there's studies that show that just the importance of having kind of that mentorship. You're significantly more likely to succeed and grow as a business if you've got something like that in your system in your support system. So thinking about systems, though, we like to talk a lot about that just to help businesses. What kind of systems or programs have you seen work best in helping those entrepreneurs connect, grow, and succeed? What kind of things do you guys have in place that is, part of your process or things that you repeat?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is a great question. I think there's a few different, I guess you could call them programs, but we do a lot of, as I mentioned, like training series around different topics. And Tulio, you mentioned not really knowing about small business development centers. This is a very common thing that we hear. People just don't know that we're there in the community. And that's why opportunities like this are so important for us as a network to be able to share our story and really explain to people how beneficial connecting with your local SBDC is. And I'm sorry, what was the original question? Programs. Yes. So I just want to make sure people understand, though, that we don't just work with startup businesses. We work with many established enterprises that are either ready to expand, maybe they're ready for new capital. And so we have different training programs that are like appropriate for different stages of your business. So one I can think of that we implemented when I was a center director in Yavapai County was simply business planning. And we would pull up a tool, a software tool, and everyone had their own account. And we would literally go through how to write a business plan in real time. And the business plan software was basically a very structured outline of, what problem are you solving? What is your target market? And it would go through each of these sections, section by the training would go through the platform section by section. And so people could really understand how to piece that together in preparation for either pitching to an investor or even taking it to a bank to access capital in the form of a loan or a microloan or that kind of thing. So, and this again is when it's structured this way, where you're bringing people in to go through a process together, there's a lot of connections between the business owners in that room, trying to figure out how to, change or move from this idea that they've had for the last 5 years into a structured business plan with financial projections and a path forward to really either start their brick and mortar or start their food truck or whatever that looks like. So I think training programs that really bring entrepreneurs together are always really successful.
Yeah, and I think it's a lot different being able to talk on ChatGPT or something, get some feedback versus actually meeting with a person who's been through it and done that. It's just much more tangible. It's a huge difference between those two.
Yeah, I'd be curious as someone new to it, because that doesn't mean entrepreneurs don't use different things. You've been both in not-for-profit and for profit organizations, and sometimes you end up hiring or being part of an incubator or an accelerator program or things like that, so which you pay into. Sometimes you give up part of your company to do that. So I'm just curious, what's the difference between the two? Why would one choose one over the other? Are they dissimilar, or walk us through that? Why would someone want to use the SBDC versus something like a commercially available kind of a program?
Well, in my view, every resource has value. And when you're, and every business owner is different. And I think it really is up to them to decide what format or what kind of structure they need in the stage that they're in with their business. It's really up to them to decide what's going to work best for them. To be honest, some people do better in a paid environment where they have there's certain outcomes that come along with a paid service versus an SBDC kind of program or a SCORE program or something where this is a no-cost service. But what I do encourage people to do,
distinction between the two.
What's that?
I mean, that's a pretty clear and big distinction between the two. If you're a small business or a first-time entrepreneur, it might be really beneficial not to burn through a lot of cash to get commercial.
I agree with you. Yeah. I totally agree with you. But I also think there's some people who that's just where their head goes is it's going to be more valuable if I pay for it. And that's not always the case. It's really not. And I would say that, our program has, is as valuable, if not more valuable than some of those paid programs. But I think it just depends on the experience you're looking for. And I'm not gonna dog on some of these programs that might, for someone specific, it might be a better situation for them. We definitely have clients who, it's kind of like you have to shop a little bit when you come into the SBDC program. It's finding the right advisor, finding the right fit for you. And we're very open to that. You could meet with a client and you can just tell it's not really a fit. But what's great is we've got, 60 other people who have similar experience or a very specialized skill or experience to share, and we can reconnect that client with maybe a better fit. And that, I think, makes us an incredibly agile and flexible program, because we do have such a wide range of skill and experience on our teams across the state.
Thinking about some of the underserved communities or the rural areas, or what kind of systems are often missing in those communities that you help provide?
Systems in like more rural areas?
Yeah, like what's kind of maybe the typical needs that you help fill in?
Of a business or of the community?
Well, I guess I was thinking the business, but of either, I guess, really.
I mean, I don't know if this is a system, but certainly we've all heard the challenges of workforce and the lack of skills across our workforce for particular industries. And, it's really no different in areas outside of our urban centers. I would say that one of the things we hear most is just it's very hard to find talent. Part of that, I think, is it really is more, the cost of living is much more expensive in non-urban areas. And all of those resources and just your basic needs can be a long distance away. Health service, your childcare services, anything that's kind of part of a day-to-day. And because of that distance, it's just a lot more expensive. And so, as I mentioned, we've seen a lot of flight from these more rural areas because of the cost of living, and thereby I think it impacts the quality of our work and our workforce and our talent in those communities. So I would say there's just, what happens there is there's just a stagnation in growth and expansion for some of those businesses, because it's just the business owners are having to work in their business instead of on their business, and that can have significant impacts on their business, but also the economy overall.
All right, we've got some audience questions here. Let's pull up one of those, Tulio. All right, it's from a LinkedIn user. What's the number one best kept secret or resource that the SBDC offers that most business owners are totally missing out on?
Well, I would mention a few things. Mm-hmm. I think that SBDCs, our teams are very aware of not just resources within our network, but additional resources outside of our network. And this includes things like, we have a partner, the Apex Accelerator, which is also a federally funded program that works specifically with businesses on government contracting, which is there's a very specific process to getting contract ready. And again, it's something that maybe businesses at certain phases don't really think about, but we can help get that business ready for looking ahead at the future and what government contracting could look like. And that's not just federal contracting, but maybe there are opportunities more with your local government, your county government, your state government. So we have resources to support people in that space.
Yeah,
we also have, okay, go ahead.
Just having gone through all that, there's a lot of just paperwork and things to at each of those levels that you have to go through. And so it's just having someone to support you as you're walking through that.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I like to think of us as really providing guidance, right? The ultimate decision on any path forward is always up to the business owner, but it's always nice to have this main point of contact that can act as a guide through checking the boxes, crossing your T's, dotting your I's, making sure you have the correct forms, that you're totally legitimate. I mean, sometimes we have clients come to us who think that they're, fully in business, quote unquote, but they may have missed a few steps. And, sometimes, again, it's okay to say, I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to do. And it's nice to have a guide or somebody to rely on to help you through that process. So that could be government contracting. It could be, we have another resource in international trade or exporting. That's kind of a more advanced step in the business, stage. But I think there's a lot of things. We also have partners who put on pitch competitions, and that can be a great avenue for a startup or a new business to identify new resources. So I think there's a lot of ways we can connect a new business with additional resources.
All right, we've got another audience question here. So how do you keep your advisor team motivated when the local economy takes a dip?
Well, the way I look at this is...
I could add another part to this. This might be a dumb question, but I need to ask it. Do those advisors get paid by the SBDC or they're volunteers?
Right. So the SBDC network is, these are paid advisors. The services are completely free to any business owner or person who just has an idea. They can come in and make an appointment with an advisor, but all of our staff are paid. Yes. This is a paid program. Yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. So to this question, I would just say that really that's our main job as SBDC advisors is to be that positive voice, kind of the cheerleaders in the background, helping the small businesses understand that this is just a dip in in a long-term timeline, that better days are to come. And entrepreneurship is like that. It is always a roller coaster. And our role with the SBDC is to just kind of keep everybody level and understand what the business challenges are in that moment. So why are they feeling the impacts of that dip, and how do we come up with really structured and solid strategies to help them ride that wave? A lot of learnings come out of the dip in time. Typically, it's back in the pandemic, we were saying pivot all the time. Okay, what's your pivot? How do we reframe the way that you've been doing business for the last 20 years? And how do we help you get to that, through this, kind of dark time to the better times? And sometimes it is a complete shift. Sometimes we have to encourage them to really think critically about where they want to be and how they can really change what they're doing to get to that next step.
Yeah, I think that's an important point, is that, like you said, that pivot, when you're kind of struggling, this is when you have to get creative. And that's really when you kind of, if you can bring in other perspectives to help you through that, help you through those pivots, super helpful. And that's, like you said, sometimes you see, big changes and company going in a whole different direction successfully.
I learned that the hard way as a first-time entrepreneur. You can't have a chip on your shoulder. You're trying to prove something. You'll get in trouble. You got to pivot fast when it's not going the right way. Now, a question for you. We talk about the role of purpose in business. There's a lot of stats and studies that show how important that is for companies to set that stage early on. So for many entrepreneurs and community leaders, purpose is really closely tied to the impact they're going to have on the community and society at large. How has purpose shaped your work in supporting these businesses and communities?
Well, I mean, I was an entrepreneur at like 2024, I want to say, right when I returned from my Peace Corps experience. I jumped right into entrepreneurship. And I had a lot of help and support. My business partner, who had been in business for, already maybe 15 years, had a lot of firsthand experience in in business, and it was more than I could have obtained from going to school for my MBA. You know what I mean? It's just like that real life experience. And I know how helpful it was for me at that time. And so now all I can think about is how that changed my life, and that these entrepreneurs that I'm working with deserve that same kind of support and guidance from someone who's been in the trenches just like them. And I share stories with my colleagues all the time because they too have those same stories to share. And to be honest, I think I can speak for a lot of our SBDC teams in saying that these clients, they're clients, and you have to, you keep a professional relationship, but a lot of times they become very close friends because you're sharing. It's a very vulnerable space to be in when you're the business owner and you're saying, you know what, I screwed up. I shouldn't have done X, Y, Z. This isn't working the way that I thought it would. And it puts you in a very vulnerable space, and you're sharing that personal experience with someone you don't really know, and over time it becomes a very close connection and close relationship. And you want nothing more than this person to be successful in their business, because you kind of become part of that story. They're sharing their story in this very vulnerable way, and you want nothing more than for them to make it. And it's hard to make it. We all know that. There's a lot of business fails, and learning experiences come out of that, but it's not easy. So I think it is very personal for me, for sure, as a business owner myself. And I still reach out to people for help all the time because I need it. I struggle just the same as any of these entrepreneurs that I'm working with. And I think that's part of the reason this program is so successful and so valuable, because a lot of the people working with those entrepreneurs have been in the trenches in the same way.
Yeah, and this is like, if your business is struggling, this is one of the most stressful things in your lifetime, even going through that process. And you don't have to go it alone. There are people out there who can kind of help you work your way through it. And so this is just a great resources for our communities. If I was a business leader and I wanted to figure out ways I can be more in service to my community, how could you help me with that as far as getting in touch and working within the community? Because it sounds like this is a great way to connect with other business leaders. If I want to be more involved in my community, is this a good resource?
Sure. I mean, I think we're a resource for a lot of things. If you want to get more connected in your community, I mean, a very simple way is to look out for those networking opportunities, of which there are so many now, and because I think we're able to connect a lot easier through digital means. These entrepreneurial networking opportunities are now everywhere. And, the SBDCs ourselves, we have partners with our state commerce, so Arizona Commerce Authority. We have partnerships with other resources because it's important for us to network in those same groups of people too. Our chambers of commerce, for example, are typically really good resources, especially out in more rural areas, because they are that business hub. And I would just say, get to know other local leadership, not just in the business community, but who's leading who are the admin folks at your local school, because those folks have connections to the families that live there, who in turn could be your next customer. I mean, there's a lot of, I guess, simple kind of connections like that in your community. And yeah, we're happy to make recommendations or find ways that you can build those relationships.
So Ruth Ellen, one question we we get business leaders on this show from all different walks of life, big businesses, small businesses. Is the question we like to ask, though, is it's around care and compassion, and it's what role should love play in business, do you think?
I would go back to, kindness, I think, is where my head goes. And we can't serve everybody, like we get clients in sometimes and it's like, okay, who's your target market? And they're like, everyone's going to buy my product. And you have to take time to like step back and kind of go through this conversation about, actually, not everyone is going to be your client, but how can you learn about what that customer is looking for and help connect them with another person, maybe in your own community, who they might find better value in whatever they're selling, right? I mean, I feel like it's that old adage of a rising tide lifts all boats. If you really are connected in your community and you're supporting other businesses, even if they might be a competitor, the goal is that the customer finds what they're looking for. And by referring them maybe to somebody else, maybe on down the road, that business owner is going to do the same for you and refer somebody back to your business. And by building those kinds of referral networks or connections or kindness between a business community, you're only strengthening that local economy overall, and then we all win, right? I think it's more about not being in it for yourself, but really thinking about how to bring everybody up with you.
Now, Ruth Ellen, everybody's going to want my Kool-Aid. Come on, everybody's going to want it.
Maybe.
That's the famous saying. Everybody's going to want it, right? Until you figure out market fit. So this is great. I've personally learned something new. I didn't even know this existed. I'm like, wow, this is such an amazing resource to have. Every business should avail themselves of it. And if anything, connect to it and make your business known that you exist, that you can help other businesses too. Now, in building connection, in building community, it's clear that you guys offer up a lot for these businesses to be able to make sense of the journey, and at no cost. It's a benefit available to you as a taxpayer, basically. But for leaders and business owners who want this strength and connection in their communities, if you have to, if there's one thing they're going to remember, just one thing, besides looking for their local SBDC program, what's a practical step you think they should take to be effective at doing that? Building connection and community in their community.
I mean, my strategy has always been to have a party at your business. I mean, bring people in and celebrate with the other businesses in the community, and then be approachable. That was something else especially when you're starting or building in a community that maybe you're not from there, or you're coming in as kind of an outsider. You've got a lot more work to do in building connections, and it's really to your advantage to find ways to demonstrate your investment, not just in your own business, but in the community overall. And so that's it's supporting the local public school. It's supporting your local library programs. It's getting to know your town manager and their economic development department. It's inviting people to an open house at your place of business. It's hiring local talent. It's when you have events at your place, it's hiring the local musician. And again, it's not just investing in your own business, but it's showing how you're investing in the community overall, and that you want to be one of the pillars of the community.
I love that. That felt like a whole show in its own we could go into. If you're from outside a community and you're coming in to start a business, that was a great answer. I love it. Ruth Ellen, thank you for coming on and sharing everything you're doing with the SBDC. To our listeners, thank you for your great questions. Consider how you might be able to need some, get involved with some of the resources available to you, and where you might be struggling with, or where you want to take your business to. They've got great mentors. We all need mentors in life and in business. So thank you for tuning in and joining us on the Bliss Business Podcast, and we will see you next time.